Part 3: The Story of the $10 Million Prize and the Source of Life. Introduction. An unexpected reunion. The small coffee shop by the lake this morning was as quiet as ever. I, a 60-year-old man with grey hair, let's call it old age, sat next to a cup of black coffee without sugar, a habit of many years. I thought I would be sitting alone, until a familiar voice rang out behind me. "Do you remember me?" I turned around and smiled involuntarily. It was that girl. 20 years old, bright eyes, frank and curious, as if her head was filled with thousands of unanswered questions. We had talked once before, a long time ago. We sat like this, talking about the universe, about the origin of information, about why life exists. At that time, she was just a new student entering the lecture hall, and I was just an old man working in an amusement park with an animal farm. A seemingly unrelated meeting between two people from opposite ends of life. But today, she took the initiative to find me. "You quit your job, right? Go live in my dorm. I want to write a book." I was surprised. A rich girl, a nice car, high-class fragrant clothes, should not need to care about an old man who has nothing but idle philosophy. "Why you?" She did not answer immediately, just looked out at the lake, where the wind blew gently. "In university, people taught me knowledge. But last time, you showed me a perspective. I want to write a book that young people will read and open their eyes like me back then. I need you to tell me the rest." I was silent. In my heart, something stirred, like gratitude. Perhaps it had been too long since anyone trusted me like that. I brought my old backpack back to her boarding house. The room was small, but clean, with an empty bookshelf waiting to be filled. That night, she spread out a white paper, opened her laptop, and said, "Wherever you say, I will write." She had no idea that, in parallel with the book she was writing, I was secretly submitting my entry for the $10 million Artificial Intelligence Plus Origin of Life Prize. A prize that the whole world was waiting for an answer to. But the person who sent the answer was a 60-year-old Vietnamese man, sitting in an 18-square-meter boarding house, opening instant coffee, and typing every night. Vietnamese people have a personality. If you do something, do it to the end. From war to everyday life, the most difficult thing is the one you want to try. Not because you are greedy for fame, but because in your blood there is the seed of competitiveness, self-respect, and intellectual curiosity. I belong to that generation. "What do you intend to write a book for?" I asked. She smiled. "So that later, when you are 30 or 40 years old, you will look back at the traces of your youth. To know that you have lived, not just drifted." The answer left me speechless. There are people whose youth only needs a fire. From that day on, every morning I drank coffee, watched the bustling crowd, then went back to my rented room to tell stories. And she sat next to me, typing on the computer at a speed that surprised me. The outside world was noisy, but between four thin walls, we gradually built our own universe, wrapped in questions and answers. Gradually, the first chapter took shape. The girl read it again, and exclaimed, "Great, Uncle. But people won't understand. I will write in a way that ordinary people can understand." She edited the sentences, adjusted the words, arranged the pictures, and added examples. And I realized, wisdom is not only in understanding, but in telling. Perhaps, the world needs an old person to think about the universe, and a young person to tell it. Vietnam is smart, but many ideas die young because of a lack of storytellers. This time, we will tell it all. Chapter 1. The Stone Falls into the Water. A folk story. Imagine a summer afternoon in the countryside. You take a small stone and throw it into a calm pond. Crack. The water ripples into concentric circles, spreading out into the distance. First a small, strong circle. Then a larger circle, gradually weaker. Then a weaker one to the point where it is no longer visible to the naked eye. Everyone is familiar with this image since childhood. But how many people stop and ask, what information is being spread here? With the naked eye, We only see the water shaking. But in fact, it is energy, transmitted from where the stone touches down. Quickly, that wave circle meets the grass by the pond, undulating the leaves. A leaf drifts sideways, then rotates slightly. The naked eye still sees it simply. But in essence, it is energy transformed into information. How many degrees does the leaf tilt? How many times does it rotate? Which direction does it drift? That is the trace. Then after a few seconds, the water surface returns to calm. No more waves. But the energy story has happened. Understood, B. Philosophy. Looking at the image above, we realize three important things. 1. Energy always spreads. No energy stands still. That is the basic law of the universe. 2. Energy always decreases. The further away from the center, the weaker the wave. That is a sign of increasing entropy. 3. Energy leaves a trace. The leaf turns, the blade of grass shakes, that is information. From here we have the principle. Information is the physical trace of energy when it interacts with the environment. Biology or AI, in the end, live by this principle. Understood. Chapter 2. Waves on the water. In the first days of living in the boarding house, the girl and I gradually got used to the rhythm. In the morning she went to school, in the afternoon she came back to buy food, in the evening she opened her laptop, placed it in front of me like a ritual. Continue telling me. This evening, I poured another cup of hot tea. The cool air made my mind more flexible. I looked at the glass of water in front of me, then asked her, "Have you noticed what happens when a stone falls into the lake?" She frowned. Waves. Circles spread out. I nodded. Yes. What do you see? From the center, the inner circle gets smaller, the outer circle gets bigger. And have you noticed, the further away from the center, the weaker the amplitude? She nodded slowly. That is the trace of energy. Hit the water records, propagates, then disappears. She was silent for a few seconds, as if connecting something. I continued. Imagine the entire universe is a giant lake. The Big Bang was the first stone dropped. Everything we see, atoms, planets, light, people, are waves. They flow, expand, carrying the information of the initial impact. She opened her eyes wide. That means, life is also a wave? Yes. We are a form of resonance. Part of that wave. I took a pen, quickly drew on the paper. Center, circle 1, circle 2, circle 3. Then asked. The inner circle is small, the outer circle is big. What do you think? She thought. The farther from the center, the bigger? Almost. But the main idea is, the initial energy determines the size of the outer ring. She blinked. That is, the stronger the energy, the larger the life? I smiled. Yes. That is why there are small species, large species. There are trees a few centimeters, and trees tens of meters tall. Like different vibration frequencies? Exactly. Each species has its own resonance frequency. That is why they do not overlap. She lowered her voice. So biodiversity is many different collision frequencies? I nodded, squinting. You are on the right track. Understood. I pointed to the glass of water. Look at the waves on the water. They always try to return to a flat balance. But never absolutely flat. Always oscillating a little. What do you see here? She was confused. Consciousness. Yes. Consciousness is the perception of the vibrations of the energy balance. The body always maintains balance. Eat when hungry, drink when thirsty, sleep when tired. All just to bring the wave back to the original flat line. She exhaled. A person's whole life is spent searching for balance. Like a math problem. Wonderful. And that's why mathematics was born. I wrote on the paper. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. You think this is addition? Wrong. This is the oath of the universe. Energy in equals energy out. No one taught me this in class. But that is the root of mathematics, and the root of life. She looked at the equation with new eyes. So mathematics is the symbol of energy? Yes. Mathematics was not born from humans. Humans only discovered it like discovering waves. Understood. I leaned back, lowered my voice. When carbon meets energy, it expands, resonates, like the surface of water. And like water, it leaves a trace. That trace is information. Information equals waves retained in matter. She nodded, trembling slightly in surprise. So DNA is a fixed wave loop? Yes. DNA is a wave loop. Frozen in a chain. For example, starfish, whales, bacteria, each species is a different loop. I closed the notebook. So what do you see? She answered immediately. Life is not mysterious. It is matter that knows how to retain the wave of energy. I looked at her, my emotions overflowing. A young person who understands that from the beginning of the journey is very rare. She continued. If the universe is a lake, the Big Bang is a stone. Then who threw it? I laughed. That question. Leave it for chapter 8. It's too early now. We both laughed. She turned off the laptop, said softly. Today I understand. Life is not a miracle. It is a wave that seeks balance. And man is just one vibration in the symphony of energy. Yes, girl. And the vibration that lasts is the optimal vibration. Out there, the lake is quiet. But I see countless waves silently spreading out. Invisible ripples. That morning, the 60-year-old man made a pot of hot tea. The girl sat at the table, her hair tied hastily at the back of her neck, her eyes attentively looking at each page of the unfinished manuscript. The scent of green tea wafted through the air, mixed with the sound of traffic in the small alley. A simple piece, like a rare silence between the invisible vibrations they were trying to explain to humanity. Energy, information, life. Uncle, the girl asked, when I reread what you taught, I felt that the evolution of living things is exactly like ripples on the surface of water. Right, uncle. The old man smiled, put down his teacup. You're not wrong. Everything in the universe is a wave, just a different manifestation. They were silent for a moment. The girl turned to a new page and began to write. You know, she continued, among my friends, no one believes that a common Vietnamese person can reach the hypothesis of the origin of life. The old man smiled gently. Vietnamese people are still the same. Quiet, persistent. Through storms and storms, they still work hard to the end. They don't show off. Science sometimes needs that stubbornness. The girl laughed. Then my life of writing this book is like marking my youth. And your pursuit of the award is like marking a lifelong journey. The old man nodded. His eyes were a bit distant. Each person only has one life. If we don't pursue a question, we will die without knowing we ever lived. The girl paused on the keyboard. That sentence to her was like a thunderbolt. Simple, but it pierced her heart. Outside the window, sunlight shone on the gray brick floor, drawing diagonal streaks of light like the layers of cosmic information. They didn't say more. The girl writes. The old man sits still. And the third chapter begins. B. The girl who writes. Energy ripples and the traces of life. When a stone is dropped into water, we observe concentric waves spreading out. It is a simple image, but it contains two immutable laws. 1. Energy always travels. 2. It travels in waves. The universe works the same way. Lightning, solar radiation, cosmic rays, all travel in widespread ripples of energy. But here is the interesting thing. When an energy wave hits a durable material like carbon, it leaves a trace, like an invisible signature, like information. That is where data came from before life appeared. Carbon, the information-revealing membrane. Not all elements are good at tracking. Carbon is special because a hybrid structure, sp, sp superscript 2, sp superscript 3, a bond strength, a flexibility in chain formation. It is the perfect projection for the energy movies of the universe. Life is essentially the most stable trace of energy. From repeating atomic resonances, carbon gradually forms. Chain. A repeating pattern. A rhythm. Code. We call it DNA. Biological diversity equals noise in ripples. When many waves collide. A interference. A reinforcement. A cancellation. They create countless different resonance patterns. That is the root cause of a genetic variation, a species diversity, adaptive evolution. Not by chance. It is the inevitable consequence of energy waves in a noisy environment. What Darwin described as selection. The universe does by energy interference. Information evolves like waves. The information in DNA is not static. It flows. It changes. It diffuses. Just like a wave. And the essence of life, nothing else, is a process of finding an energy balance in an ever-changing environment. That balance is the essence of consciousness, always adjusting to survive. Underscore C. Illustrative metaphor, in words. Imagine. Ere a calm pond, matter. Ere a heavy stone falls, energy. A ripple spread out, information. A waves grow and organize themselves, forming a helical pattern, DNA. The ripple has no idea at first. It is writing the music of life. Underscore End of chapter. In that small boarding house, amidst the sound of wind blowing through the bars of the window, the two of them did not know that the story they were writing was actually a trace of energy being left on the page, just like the universe once left on carbon. The trace of energy, the student and the first code. The 20-year-old student Mai still had the scent of chalk and coffee from her late-night studies in her hair. When the 60-year-old man talked about energy riding on matter, an idea flashed through her mind. If energy could write, could she simulate that journey in the language she knew best? Programming? One evening, after hearing him talk about boiling water bubbles and Hubble's redshift, Mai sat down at her desk and turned on her computer. The screen was filled with lines of code, but she wasn't planning on writing a gene-detecting program. She wanted to write a small program, a virtual world where energy was the object, and simple matter, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphate, was the rule. The old man didn't understand all the code, but he understood the path of thought. He watched Mai type, then pointed to the DNA model on the table. You'll see. First, you have to believe that energy is a storyteller. You give it a space, a frame, and then listen to it. Mai started with a very simple module, a grid of squares, each square a virtual material element that can carry a certain amount of energy, wave. At each step of the simulation, energy was fed in from a source, representing ATP, light, or environmental stimulation. The squares could absorb, resonate, transmit, or alter neighboring structures according to simple rules she set. Rules rooted in physics, energy balance, resonance, and conditional chemical bonding. But my wanted letters, A, G, T, C, so she designed a layer of abstraction. Each letter was a characteristic vibrational pattern. A series of vibrations with a certain phase and amplitude, easily connected to the T pattern. T, a pattern compatible with A, they kiss with 2 vibrational lines. G, a more complex pattern, creating 3 strong connections with C. C, a pattern complementary to G. She wasn't trying to copy the chemical structure exactly. Instead, she was simulating the compatibility of vibrational patterns. That's what she believed, Carbon writes. In the model, when a virtual carbon region receives enough energy and encounters a suitable wave pattern, it transforms into a specific base, a letter in the code. To explain to herself why carbon can do this, Mai wrote a few notes in her notebook. Carbon has 4 legs, 4 valence electrons. It can bond with many different partners and form rings, chains, sheets, which allows for many structural forms to appear. As energy flows through, those patterns resonate in their own way, leaving behind vibrational traces. The repeated and persistent traces are symbols, letters. The old man, hearing this, smiled as if seeing his grandson who had not yet grown up. You set the rules, you will see the patterns appear. The universe always likes to repeat. Repetition is the sign of information. Mai launched the simulation. At first, there was noise, flashes of light across the grid. After a few rounds, in a small corner, a random sequence suddenly repeated. An A, T, G, C pattern appeared over and over again. It was more durable than the surrounding area, absorbing energy more efficiently. She called it the starting sequence. She and he looked at it. The sequence was like a sentence in the book of nature, a series of characters written by energy and stored by carbon. He explained the rationale of the base pairs she was simulating in a subtle way, but in plain language. Each base is a kind of handshake. A and T shake hands with just 2 notes, a light, easy-to-open handshake. G and C shake more tightly, 3 notes, stable. When the environment is mixed, stable pairs will last longer, so gradually repetitive chains will arise. It's a selection, not by design, but because energy and structure favor the stable. Mai typed a few more lines, letting the simulation environment change, increasing the energy, a virtual photon storm, cooling it, adding virtual ions to the grid. Strangely enough, as the environment changed, some chains shifted, some broke, some rejoined to form longer segments. Her simulation began to come to life at a rudimentary level. Structures that could hold energy and respond effectively would be preserved and duplicated under the right conditions. She jotted down a line in her notebook, like a small discovery. Life, or at least energy memory, arises when there is 1. An energy source to activate, 2. A conductor to record, 3. A resonance rule to select a stable structure. The old man nodded. He added, "And remember, child, that memory is information. When energy passes through and leaves a trace, the trace is not just printed and then left. It calls for a reaction, a cry for balance, and in that reaction, information is executed, copied, corrected, multiplied." Darkness fell, and the computer screen glowed a faint blue, reflecting off their faces. On the virtual grid, the A, T, G, C strings flickered like bright paths. Mai sensed something. She was learning to program a language not of silicon, but of carbon, a language in which energy and matter co-wrote. The simulation didn't give her the DNA of life, but it did give her something more valuable, a way to understand. She learned that programming DNA, the way she wanted, wasn't about putting instructions into a box and waiting for the results. It was about setting the rules for energy, about creating a stage where energy could act, so that from the repetition of the acts, a new script was born, the genetic code. The old man looked at her, his voice slow as if reciting a spell. "When you understand that language, when you can write rules that make energy want to repeat a pattern, then you will be able to program life, first on the machine, then you can understand it more deeply in the real world. Chapter 5. Eating Gene Circuit. When life knows how to transmit, the old man said, his eyes looking far away through the glass window of the laboratory. You see, being born as a human, a bacterium or an ant is the same. Opening your eyes is looking for energy. Eating is the first act of life. The female student sitting next to him, her hand still programming the DNA simulation code. But, teacher, why does life want energy? It doesn't know how to want. He smiled. It doesn't want. It is forced to transmit. Just like electricity must flow through a circuit. When the universe charges energy into carbon, carbon is forced to find a way to distribute that energy in a balanced way. And to do so, it creates a structure, from AGTC to the body, from cells to eating behavior. He pointed to the simulation screen. A segment of DNA appeared, the A, T, G, C chains flashing like an electric signal. Look here, in the cell, there are gene circuits that people call metabolic circuits. There, genes are like transformers that control how chemical energy, glucose, ATP, is loaded, distributed, and stored. If you separate them, each gene is like a biological logic gate. For example, the AMPK gene is an energy sensing switch. When the energy in the cell decreases, it turns on the saving circuit, stops growing, and switches to starvation mode to survive. The girl was silent, imagining those genes as electronic chips. So you said, eating is an action to keep the energy flow from breaking? That's right. Eating is a mechanism that automatically transmits energy. When life sees that the energy in the system is decreasing, it sends a signal from DNA molecule, RNA, protein, enzyme behavior. Finally, the body must find a new source of energy to close the cycle. The old man said in a low voice, the universe has installed in every living thing an ancient command: balance energy to survive. That is the first programming principle of life. The student tapped the keyboard and whispered, so that means if I understand this gene circuit, I can rewrite the hunger satiety program. Yes. But when I do that, I am entering a programming area that the universe itself must be wary of, where energy rewrites its own code. Underscore. The student began to simulate the hunger satiety gene circuit in the computer, and discovered that when the flow of energy is too much or too little, the system automatically generates a cry of data, similar to pain, hunger, or fear signals in biology. From here, the story will lead to the energy starting to talk to the programmer. Chapter 6. Resonance Circuits and Memories of the Universe. That afternoon, Saigon suddenly rained. Raindrops tapped on the corrugated iron roof, like tapping on a table. The girl pulled the glass door closed, but the sound of rain still echoed in like a background orchestra. The 60-year-old man sat in front of an old computer, opening the 5-bit simulation window from the day before. The screen emitted a faint blue light. The girl leaned on the chair from behind him, leaning her arms on the chair. Uncle, energy impacts carbon and then becomes DNA. So why can it repeat? How can it replicate itself? The old man did not answer immediately. He opened his teacup, took a breath. Look at the rain. One drop falls and leaves nothing behind. But millions of repeated drops, with the same force, the same rhythm. The ground begins to change shape. That is the power of repetition. The girl rested her chin on her hand. Ah. DNA is a resonance pattern, but it is repeated countless times. The old man smiled. Repetition creates memory. Memory creates form. A form that is stable enough. We call it life. Outside, the thunder rumbled a deep sound, echoing in the space. The girl was startled. The old man pointed to the window. Lightning is the strongest resonance pattern in the early days. It initiated the first measurement. The girl nodded slightly. She opened her laptop, Her hands pressed the keys, her mind following the ripples she had just heard. And Chapter 4 began. Understood. The Girl Who Writes Books. 4.1 Resonance Circuit. In electronics, an LC, inductor capacitor, resonance circuit will only oscillate at its correct frequency. F equals 1/2 pi square root LC. Biology, especially DNA, operates under similar rules. AT and GC bases have different bond lengths. Hydrogen bond energy creates a specific oscillation level. Polymer chain creates a weak electric current path. We can see DNA equals nanomolecular resonance circuit. Understood. Understood. 4.2 Why does DNA remember? In physics, a resonance circuit increases in amplitude when the external wave is in phase. This is called resonance amplification. In biology, polymerase enzyme amplifies the template. Bases are added in phase. Noise is eliminated. This is the principle of filtering information by resonance. We express A underscore out equals A underscore in Q, where Q is the quality factor. The higher, the more stable the structure. The more stable, the more like material memory. DNA survived 3.5 billion years because it is the most durable energy memory. Understood. Understood. 4.3 Repeating matter equals stored information. Carbon can form aromatic rings, sp superscript 2, long chains, sp superscript 3, branching. When the energy wave hits the right rhythm, the repeating chain, C underscore the underscore, N+1. This is the repeat polymer model. The building block of DNA. We can see the new DNA as matter that has learned to repeat information. Not random. No need for a programmer. Just rhythmic energy. Matter will arrange itself. Like regular drumbeat, soldiers march in line. Regular oscillation, shaped sound waves. Frequency equals order. Understood. Underscore. 4.4 Resonance creates species. Each species has optimum temperature, optimum ion environment, optimum oxidation energy level. All are stable resonance points. We model species equals argmin, E underscore variance. The species that survives the longest is the species that keeps the most stable energy oscillation. Whales, turtles live long, stable resonance system. Small animals live fast, high oscillation energy loss. Understood. Underscore. 4.5 Consciousness equals phase shift sensor. When energy deviates from balance, the brain sends signals. Hunger, thirst, pain, fear. Mathematically, delta is not equal to 0. Action. Consciousness is the phase feedback controller. Human life equals process of minimizing energy deviation. Nothing more. Understood. Underscore. 4.6 Why biodiversity? In interference, superposition, phase shift, new pattern appears. F T equals sigma underscore IA underscore I sin, omega underscore T plus underscore. This is the Fourier of life. Evolution is not random. It is an inevitable consequence of interference. Underscore Chapter 4 Conclusion. From a resonance perspective. DNA repeats because of energy rhythms in phase. Species diversity because of interference. Consciousness because of phase shifts that need to be compensated. Life is the most durable resonance trace. When we look into the eyes of a living being, we are looking into the energy memory of the universe. Underscore Illustrative metaphor. In words. Imagine a rope bridge. Each string vibrates in the wind. But if someone steps in the right rhythm, the whole world vibrates strongly. That is resonance. Same with DNA. An energy rhythm in phase. Matter vibrates, lines up, repeats, stays. And so, life resonates. Like a string hitting the right frequency. Chapter 7. A primitive water drop equals a molecular guitar. It was raining again in Saigon in the afternoon. The drops of water fell on the corrugated iron roof as if testing the sound of each discrete beat of the universe. The girl gently pulled back the curtains, while the old man was still sitting there, in front of the old computer emitting a blue light, as if rereading his own history. The girl put the laptop down on the table and asked, "Uncle, how did a primitive drop of water give birth to a complex structure like DNA? Why did the molecular mixture know how to gather into order?" The old man did not answer immediately. He gently swirled his teacup, listening to the sound of the rain as if listening to an old answer from billions of years ago. "Have you ever played guitar?" he asked. The girl laughed. "I can only play a few basic chords. But, what does this have to do with anything?" The old man tilted his head. "You will see. The universe has its own way of telling stories." Underscore underscore. 1. The first drop of water, where all the strings are tuned. He turned on the screen, showing a simple simulation. A slowly rotating drop of water, full of small dots, tiny carbon molecules. "In the first drop of water on Earth," he said, "there is formaldehyde, methanol, primitive amino acids, all vibrating, like individual strings." Then he tapped the table as if plucking an A string. The CH bond vibrates at about 2900 cm superscript 1. The C equals O bond vibrates at about 1700 cm superscript 1. Carbon rings like benzene vibrate more deeply. The girl looked at the simulation, the light vibrating at each frequency. "Like a molecular guitar," she whispered. The old man smiled. "Yes. Each molecule is a note. And the original drop of water is the guitar case that amplifies the whole story." Underscore underscore. 2. Mixture is not chaos, it's a harmony. He stood up and walked to the glass door. "Listen, in a guitar, the E string, the G string, the A string don't stand alone. They resonate through the case, the air, and multiple vibrations." He turned back. "It's the same in the original drop of water." The girl squinted. "You mean, the carbon molecules don't float around?" "No. They find each other. Not because they like each other, but because their frequencies match." Underscore underscore. 3. Vibrational energy transfer. When molecules hear each other. On the screen, two molecules vibrate at similar frequencies. The simulation shows a translucent energy bridge connecting them. When two molecules vibrate close together, energy is transferred very easily. This mechanism is called vibrational energy transfer, VET. The old man tapped the screen. This is the first harmony of the universe. The girl rested her chin on her hand. So a carbon gathers itself because they match frequencies. Exactly. When molecules vibrate together, they form vibration clusters. Understood. Understood. 4. Vibration clusters, precursors to DNA chains. The simulation changes. Many carbon molecules gather into a vibrational cloud, light interferes, and then combines into carbon-nitrogen-oxygen chains. In these vibration clusters, he said, energy is exchanged extremely efficiently. And when the exchange is efficient, new bonds are formed more easily. On the screen, the first carbon chain is extended. This is the precursor to polymer chains, he concluded. It paved the way for coding, for a TGC. The girl was surprised. Like many strings forming a chord? Exactly. A chord is 3 notes in harmony. A codon is the same. Understood. Understood. 5. Codon, the first 3-note chord of life. He zoomed in on the simulation of 3 base molecules. 1 base equals a vibrating musical note. 3 bases close together equals a chord. On the screen, 3 bases vibrating, each frequency overlapping, creating a stable resonance mode. When 3 frequencies blend together, they lock into the most stable oscillation mode. Physics calls it a 3-base coupled oscillator, he slowly said. And biology calls it a codon. The girl burst out. That means, life began with a chord? The old man smiled for a long time. Yes. The first chord of the universe. A song that doesn't need a player. Just the right frequency. The matter arranges itself into a melody. Understood. Understood. 6. Conclusion. The rain still falls like the sound of an ancient harp. Outside, the rain still beats rhythmically on the tin roof as if answering the girl's question from the beginning. She looks out the door. Each drop of water is falling into a puddle, creating expanding circles. Uncle, is it true that each drop of water carries within it a song? The old man puts the teacup down on the table. Not just a drop of water, my dear. Every carbon molecule is a string. And the universe is the harp that has been resonating since 4.5 billion years ago. The girl smiles slightly. And the story, as well as the rhythm of the rain, continues to resound. Chapter 8. Natural Programming. When the universe chooses a 3-letter language, ***. The coffee shop was lit up again in the late afternoon. The 60-year-old man was still sitting in his usual corner, a cup of black coffee in front of him. The 20-year-old girl, young, curious, and so smart that her reflexes were faster than the internet, pulled up a chair and sat down across from him. The girl asked immediately, "You said DNA is like a computer program. So what is its programming language?" The old man smiled. "Think about it. Our computers use 0 and 1. Right? Yes. Binary. Yes. And the universe, when it wrote life, it didn't use 0 and 1, but a TGC. The girl raised her eyebrows. 4 characters. So why not have a set of 2 characters, or use 4 characters at once for speed? Here, this is interesting. The old man leaned on his hand and said, "The universe does nothing redundantly. It calculates optimally better than chip engineers now." 1. Why not 2 characters? The story of the universe trying to program and constantly getting errors. ***. The old man took out a tissue and drew a few small lines. Imagine. If the universe chose two characters, for example A, T, then a code word could only create very few combinations. It's like programming with only 0 and 1, but forcing you to write. The girl laughed. That's right. With two characters, the amount of biological vocabulary is too poor. Not enough for the universe to create millions of different types of proteins. The old man circled the word, not enough data, on the napkin. In short, two characters are too poor, life cannot be diverse. 2. So why doesn't the universe use 4 characters at once? Because 4 characters are too redundant. Asterisk asterisk. The girl frowned. 4 characters combined at once is a lot of data, so why doesn't the universe choose? Because look at this. The old man continued drawing. If 4 characters are combined at once, for example, ATGC, there are too many combinations, but most of them are useless. That is, it creates information waste. Yes. Just like a computer that runs redundant algorithms, wasting energy without bringing any meaning. The old man tapped the table. The universe is very economical. It chose the right number. 3. 3. The universe chose the 3-letter code. Because it was the energy optimum point. Asterisk asterisk. The old man drew a small table. Number of DNA letters. 4, A, T, G, C. Length of each code. 3. Total combination equals 4 cubed equals 64 codes. Number of amino acids to encode equals 20. A little extra helps prevent errors, correct errors. Not too much saves energy. The girl opened her eyes wide. Oh my. 64 codes to encode 20 types of amino acids. Just enough, with a few extra codes to correct errors. Just like the universe had calculated in advance. Exactly. The universe programmed to be incredibly economical. The 3-letter code, codon, is the ultimate energy optimization point. No excess, no shortage, built-in error correction, fast processing. The girl clapped her hands. Just like you said before. The universe always chooses the optimal solution according to 3 criteria: efficiency, savings, accumulation. 4. Comparison with modern computers and AI. See, the old man continued. Computers use 2 bits, 0 to 1, to save energy and are easy to manufacture. AI uses quantum 0, 1, 2, 3. Depending on the superposition state. The old man smiled. The universe was ahead of both. DNA uses a 4-letter system, but is encoded in groups of 3. Absolute optimization. The girl nodded. That means before humans, the universe created a programmable computer that is more powerful than any AI? Yes, DNA is the first natural AI of the universe. Knows how to write, know how to read, know how to edit, know how to run the program, and know how to optimize. 5. An unexpected question. The girl looked at the old man, pursed her lips. This guy. If DNA is the program, then who is the programmer? The old man sipped his coffee, his eyes looking far away. Energy is the programmer. Lightning, UV rays, photons, waves from the universe. All of them leave their marks on carbon for billions of years. The girl smiled. So humans are just the result of a line of energy code running for a very long time? Yes. The universe writes carbon records. Life runs the program. Humans debug the universe. The girl burst out laughing. Oh my God, you sound like a programmer. The old man pointed lightly at the notebook she was opening. And you are the one who is rewriting that program in your own way.